I'm excited to share with you all that I've contributed a chapter to the newly published Anxiety Relief Handbook. The handbook provides a unique window into 11 highly effective complementary therapies for you to sample on your quest to ease anxiety. The ebook is available on my website, happynurse.com.au/anxiety relief handbook.
You don't have to be a victim of your thoughts. You can acknowledge that they're going to do strange things sometimes, but you don't actually have to always be a victim. You can create a new reaction to that. You can create a new pattern to that. So it's just that awareness that, do something consciously a few times, let your brain kind of go, all right, mate, I got that. I'll take over. I'll run that in the background for you.
Welcome to the Happy Nurse podcast. Nurses are the backbone of healthcare, always there to care for strangers as if they were one of their own, often forsaking special moments with their own family in order to ensure another's loved one is being cared for. As nurses, self-care is essential. I am Elena Mullery, nurse educator and self-care mentor for nurses. I'm an RN with 20 years of clinical experience. I have first-hand experience of stress and burnout. It was this experience which led me to develop a passion for personal development and pursue the study of mindfulness, meditation, hypnotherapy, and neuro-linguistic programming. Each episode, I will be promoting self-care strategies to those who always care for others. I have broken self-care down into 5 aspects: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and indulgence, to make it easy to ensure all your self-care needs are being met. Each episode, I will interview nurses and self-care gurus from around the world to help you with each aspect of your self-care. Welcome to the Happy Nurse podcast with Elena Mullery. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Happy Nurse podcast. Today I am joined by Matt Hale. Matt is the winner of 3 National Comedy Awards, a former radio personality and TV presenter for Channel 9's Destination WA. Matt Hale is better known as Australia's comedy hypnotist. In addition to his live hypnotherapy shows, he's filmed a TV special for Channel 7. He is a keynote speaker with his presentation and best-selling book, Mind Hacking Happiness even. Awesome. He has released his own range of hypnosis audio programs and conducts group seminars on a variety of subjects, including memory, stress busting, motivation, sales training, weight management, and smoking cessation. He has recently had UK bookmakers William Hill officially issue odds of 1,000 to 1 of him replacing Daniel Craig as the next James Bond. Matt's favourite pastimes are foil surfing, snowboarding, and travelling with his wife and manager, Catherine. Welcome, Matt.
Wow, I'm exhausted just listening to all that. I think it's time to go back to bed.
I'm so excited to interview you because where do we even start with this? This is awesome.
Well, I think we can probably cut about 98% of everything that I have been doing out of that intro, out of what's happening right now. But
okay.
That may be different when people are listening to this in the future, of course. So
yeah. So let's start with the James Bond thing. This thing's fascinating me. Where does that come from?
Okay, the background to that is like you see all these bizarre odds sometimes. There's it happens amongst all kind of, obviously there's all the normal big sporting events and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes they have these novelty bets where there's like, wow, such and such is the next, 20 to 1, but the next James Bond, such and such is, 7 to 1. And I can't remember the odds. If you go to my TEDx talk, I actually do have the slide with the official odds on there that I displayed. But it was something like, I think I saw, like David Beckham was like 100 to 1 or something like that. And I was like, honestly, like there's no chance that David Beckham's going to be the next James Bond. But I did think, well, look, if David Beckham could be considered, then maybe even I could be considered. So I set about to see how that was possible. And then, strangely enough, William Hill, one of the world's biggest bookmakers, actually did offer me odds of 1,000 to 1 officially of becoming the next James Bond. But what was just hilarious about that was the fact that 2 or 3 years ago, if anyone's a football or a soccer, as that's known in Australia, fan, there was a big upset in England a few years ago where a team called Leicester City, who were never any chance to win the Premier League, they got given odds at the start of the season of being 5,000 to 1 to win the Premier League. So if you look at the difference in odds, Leicester were picked to be 5,000 to 1 to win the Premier League, right? William Hill have given me 1,000 to 1 to become the next James Bond. So I'm thinking they think I'm at least 5 times more likely to become the next James Bond as Leicester were to win the Premier League. And of course, we all know, or maybe you don't, but spoiler alert, Leicester won the English Premier League. So, so let's just leave it floating out there.
Yeah, that's so cool. There are a lot of listeners in the UK to this podcast with my
great
nursing over there. So,
well, yeah. forgive me for going against my very soul and calling it soccer, but that's for Australian viewers.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I hear you. It's football to us, but not in this country. Yeah, that's so cool. I love that you've put that intention out there into the universe. Daniel Craig better watch out.
Yeah, 003.5, I'm calling it. You never know, right?
Go for 014. Why do stuff less? That's very cool. Okay, I'm obviously all about promoting self-care to nurses. That is the premise behind the Happy Nurse podcast and everything else that I do with Happy Nurse. As part of my workshops and my coaching, I always talk about having a non-negotiable in my self-care. So do you have a self-care practice, and what would be your non-negotiable?
Actually, that's really interesting. Yeah, I kind of do. I've probably never called it a non-negotiable, but it kind of is. And that is, I have a kind of little agreement with myself, so I guess that's a non-negotiable, that I need to put joy into my day at some point every day. It can't happen by chance. Obviously, I do a lot of things. I'm someone who has kind of automatically built happiness into my life, and it's, that becomes a pattern. You just get used to doing fun, happy things. Are there bad times? Are there sad times? Of course, and obviously I'm mentally equipped to deal with that, and it's things that I've been helping other people to deal with for years as well. But I find that, if for any reason, I wasn't necessarily going to have any one particular piece of happiness or joy in a day, well, then I will have to make sure that I then, do actually put something in there, because that in itself becomes a pattern, and it's something I teach to people, is the fact that, our brains love patterns, they love certain routines, and we do things a number of times kind of on purpose. And eventually the back of the mind goes, oh, cool, that's the way you feel, or that's the way you act, or that's your routine. I'll kind of run that as an automatic program now. So even putting joy in your life on purpose becomes kind of like default. You do that for a couple of weeks, you can't just suddenly stop, because your brain's like, oh, hang on. No, you've got to go out and do this thing, or, get the PlayStation out, or read a book, or whatever it is, you have to put it in. So for me, a non-negotiable is definitely finding some kind of thing in the day, no matter how busy or crazy the schedule is, no matter how short or long it takes, but something which is going to give a little spike in that kind of beautiful, positive, happy feelings.
Yeah, definitely. I always say you've got to do something every day that brings you joy as well. It's as you say, it's that subconscious patterning. You need to get it in there so that you're instantly looking for it every single day.
Yeah. Our minds start to expect it. It's just like the smoker who smokes 40 a day. Like they don't want to be smoking, but unless they address that pattern's kind of going, time for another one, time for another one. It expects it. So let's give it some nice, healthy, happy patterns.
Yeah, totally. And the emotions that are surrounding that patterns too. You need to start digging into them as well, don't you? Yeah, I've got a hypnotherapy background too. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I did not know that, but that's fantastic, which helps you understand a bit more of what I do.
Yes, it does. Yeah. I created a model of self-care and broke it down into 5 aspects, because self-care kind of gets thrown around and associated with things like going to the spa or something really indulgent. So I wanted to address the fact that it's more than just that indulgent aspect. So I've broken it down into the mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and the indulgent aspects, and how important each one is. So what would be your idea of indulgent self-care?
Of indulgent self-care? Probably what I was literally doing about an hour ago, and that was I was in the water for about 2 hours this morning. I'm such a keen surfer. I do something else called foil surfing, which is essentially a surfboard with a hydrofoil underneath it. But if you know anything around that kind of surfing arena, I just love being in the ocean. And to force myself to, like, I knew we were recording this, but literally I kind of piled through the door about 15 minutes ago, had a quick shave, shower, got the salt water off and jumped into the studio here. But that indulgent for me was being able to spend 2 hours of what essentially could be an 8-hour workday. So a quarter of my day has been taken up doing this incredible thing because the conditions were correct today, and they might not be correct tomorrow. Tomorrow might just be an office day all day,
Yeah. And it's freezing out there today. It's like sitting here with a scarf on. That's commitment. Definitely. This morning, I've got a paddleboard, but I must say I'm a kind of summer fair weather paddleboarder. I'm not.
It's packed away for now, right?
Yeah. It's an inflatable one, so it's very deflated and in its bag right now. But yeah, that's awesome. And the ocean is so calming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, actually, for me, if I say I spend 2 hours in the water, like it sounds like it's crazy surfing, crazy going, whatever. But actually, a lot of it is, just bobbing around the ocean. And you're absolutely correct. I find it very soulful. I find it very calming. I find it a time of reflection and I don't know, just this. I don't know what it is, but there's something about staring at water, whether it's the river, whether it's, watching rain trickle down a window pane, and definitely just watching the ocean is something very calming and soothing. And so just amongst that time that I might be sat out there for a couple of hours, sometimes we have crazy sessions, but a lot of the sessions, you might only get a handful of good waves, and a lot of the time is actually spent sat waiting, kind of what we say out the back, just past where the waves are breaking, waiting. And that's a real time of soulful reflection, and I find it very, very calming, very soothing, very, very good for me.
Yeah, it is. It's good for the soul, and you're doing something that brings you joy as well. So it's all encompassing, really.
Yeah.
Isn't it? If you enjoy meditating, or you would like to give meditation a try, why not head on over to happynurse.com.au/meditation to download my free guided meditation for stress and anxiety relief. It's 12 minutes of pure self-care. I also speak about turning up as the best versions of ourselves when we're nurses, because I believe if we're turning up as the best versions of ourselves, we're offering our patients the best possible care we can. Who or what inspires you to be the best version of yourself?
Probably my parents, actually, who actually during this lockdown period where we're here, actually still here. They're from the UK. I'm broadcasting this from Western Australia, Perth, Western Australia, where you are actually. But my parents came over for I think a 6-week visit, and it's now been 3.5 months they've been here. And
wow.
But yeah, they've always been incredibly encouraging of me doing things. So right from a very early age, it was quite clear that I wasn't set for the standard, like do your exams, leave school, get the job, stay in that career for 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it was. I started DJing when I was 15, and my dad started helping me. He would build the lights and the bits and pieces I needed. Then because I wasn't old enough, I was actually booking gigs when I was 15 or 16, not old enough to drive. And then so he would drive me around to gigs, pick me up afterwards. I had a really interesting opportunity I just finished school at 18. I was due to go to university after that summer break. And during that summer break, I got the opportunity to go and DJ on one of the Greek islands for 6 months. And, it's kind of pretty tricky to turn down. And, far from it being an issue with my parents, it was kind of like, absolutely, you've got to grab these opportunities. You'll always have a chance to go back to uni. And that kind of has always driven me just to go out and just do things which are different, and just try things. I'm a big proponent of giving things a go. I did reference my TEDx talk earlier, but if you do look that up, look it up, TEDx Matt Hale, and you find about the core of that is about something called the power of probably, which is a kind of a little way I think, which I've tried to pop down into a nice little morsel, which is basically I've kind of discovered, I've looked at things and thought, hey, look, there's someone doing that thing, therefore it can be done. I can probably do that. Now, of course, I do prove myself wrong on numerous times, but what it does do, it gives me that chance to try lots of things. And of course, from trying lots of things, you succeed a lot of things, as much as you fall over a few times, but definitely on those times you fall over, there's something that you take away from that experience as well. So, that power of probably, I definitely am someone who's always looked at things and going like, there's, I could probably do that.
Yeah, I listened to that TEDx talk this morning.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it was really good, and I loved your I don't know if you call it an analogy, but of the car park. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah,
and I tend to do the same as you, and I always get a space. It's fascinating how it works.
Yeah. If we want to just very quickly explain it to everyone here, I kind of liken it to that thing of like, there's no magic to this. There's no kind of, God of car parking giving me the space rather than my friends. But I'm someone who thinks, look, even if it's the busiest time of day, I can probably get a car park. People are coming and going all the time anyway. So I'm much more likely to be like mentally, subconsciously and consciously looking out for a car park, going a bit slower because I'm expecting to see someone coming out. Someone who's like, oh, I guess I'll never get a car park, it's too busy. Their mind's already on driving out and wondering where they're eventually going to park. So they're going to be going a bit quicker through the car park. They're not going to be as more attuned to what's going on around them because they're expecting, me again, I never get a car park, So you're auto-suggesting to yourself, so.
Yeah, and it's that power of probably. It's all that positive visualization almost. So take it right down.
Yeah, and I'm big on the kind of science side of things. So, when people talk to me about manifesting something, I say, look, okay, I kind of get what you're saying, but we can't just sit here and go, I'm going to manifest a brand new car. I'm going to manifest, but what I do understand by that, and what I kind of see where people are thinking of that is in my eyes, is like, look, if you are going to concentrate on something and have it top of mind, well, then, you're much more likely to notice the opportunities around you that will help you get to that. It's like, you think, I'm looking for a certain model car, and then suddenly you see them all the time on the freeway. It's just your brain starts looking out for those things much more. So I don't think there's any kind of real trickery to it. It's just, it's just your mind doing the thing that it does.
Yeah, and it's just being open to the possibilities that are out there, as you're saying, and thinking outside the box as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, as nurses, we're all very scientific, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The listeners will all resonate with what you're saying, definitely.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So, what expert advice can you offer nurses in regard to their self-care? I know you're big on mind hacking happiness, so I'd love to pick your brain a bit more on that.
Yeah, I think this is for sure for nurses, but it's kind of like a template across for everybody, and that's just to be aware of. You kind of almost touched on it earlier, and it's almost at the core of every session I do. I late after this afternoon, I'm doing another one-on-one session on Zoom with a hypnotherapy client. Whether to do a group seminar, whether it is at the very core, I always talk about this main thing of the pattern forming. By your brain. So, when you know that you don't have to be a victim of your thoughts. You can acknowledge that they're going to do strange things sometimes, but you don't actually have to always be a victim. You can create a new reaction to that. You can create a new pattern to that. So it's just that awareness that do something consciously a few times. Let your brain kind of go, all right, mate, I got that. I'll take over. I'll run that in the background for you. Now, that can be, within any part of your profession or any part of your personal life. If you're someone who's, not a confident speaker, you don't like, as nurses, you're dealing with the public all the time. But I definitely know that is uncomfortable for some people. Some people, in nursing and medical profession, their absolute fascination is in the doing the thing. But then, that encompasses dealing with all the other people around that person you're doing the thing and helping that person with. And that may be quite daunting. So, for someone like that, the way I would template what I'm talking about across that is basically, get your mind used to the fact that I want to react this way when I get into this situation. And we can do that by visualization. It's so easy for our minds to kind of blur fiction and reality when we're thinking. So let's kind of spend a few moments seeing how we want this meeting to go, how we want to see this interaction to go. The confidence, the smiles, the happiness, or the sternness, whatever it is, the authority. But picture everything about it. Give it every bit of detail you can. Whether it's the smell of the room, the air in the room, the light coming through the window, the reactions from the people, how you project yourself, how you stand, how you walk into the room. Make that as real as you can in your brain. See that over and over again. Because the moment you walk into that room for that interaction in real life, boom, the back of your mind feels like it's almost got a little experience of that in real world already. So it's going to kind of nudge you towards that experience already. So, and the more you do that, again, like that just starts to become automatic. So eventually it kind of goes, bang, all right, mate, I've got that. That's the one I'll run from this point forward. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I totally relate to that because, we're seen as almost like leaders to our patients, and we're promoting health, we're educating them on how to care for themselves, and we need to come across in a confident manner. So, that visualization tool that you just explained it's awesome. I also speak a lot because I've got a background in NLP as well as the hypnotherapy, and I speak about the inner critic a lot in trying to get a grasp of that. Have you got any hints or tips on inner critic?
This is really great because I was on a podcast about 2 or 3 years ago, and it's called All Eyes on Me, and it was interviewing people who put themselves in front of very large crowds, right? And so one was a sports star, one was a singer, one was everything. And they got me in because, I do these amongst all my talks and presentations, seminars, all that. A lot of my work is also doing comedy hypnosis shows. And some of those shows, depending on where I am, we can be in theaters of, 1,000 people sometimes. So we step onto the stage and boom, there's 1,000 people. And it was a couple of comedians, a couple of great comedians, Bonnie Davis and Andrew Gibbs, who were actually behind this podcast. And they were saying, what about, when you walk out and, sometimes your brain is kind of, sometimes your brain's like, you got to forget your words, or what if people don't laugh or whatever. And there was a massive turning point in that conversation because I was like, I get that as well. And they were like, what? And what it was for me, it's like, I get that. But then I just deal with that in a slightly different way. It's not that I don't get that. I can walk out and think, what if, I forget, what I'm about to say in front of all these thousands of people. But I see that as a stupid little voice and I belittle it so much. So it's almost like it's a funny little character squashed down, teeny tiny, sat on my shoulder, kind of going, what if you forget your words? And I'm like, yeah, kind of jog on, off you go. I belittle that voice. I give it a stupid voice. If I visualized it, it would be like just a pathetic little weak, colorless character just sat there. Just don't give it any power. Because the thing is, I proved that over, thousands of performances, I don't forget my words when I jump on stage, So that little voice, which does sometimes come out, it's just a random thought. And I just kind of, I just give it the disdain that it deserves, which is, well, what if you forget words? That'd be hilarious, wouldn't it? Off you go. So that's kind of mentally what goes through my mind when that happens. So that's the inner critic, but that inner critic is just flicked off my shoulder.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've heard lots of different techniques of doing it. One is to associate it with someone that you really don't like and you don't trust. So,
that's a great one. No, I've not heard that before. That's like, well, I'm not trusting your. That's great.
And it's like a used car salesman, silly. Off you go. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I noticed as well you've been doing a lot of work around anxiety recently. Did you not release a meditation?
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. So, I'm assuming a lot of people will watch this during some portion of lockdown still. If you're watching afterwards, this was filmed during lockdown. It drastically changed the way I work, because up until COVID hit and all the restrictions, I was flying not mainly around Australia, but sometimes international as well, doing shows and presentations. And as someone whose whole career is mainly built on live presentations to big groups of people and flying to those, boom, that all came crashing down. So suddenly it went from massive year of work to zero. Like literally it all came crashing down. So it did give me time to kind of be back in my home studio. This is my studio here at home. And I thought, well, what can I do during this time? Obviously I'm doing some extra little work online with some people. But I thought, I started seeing a lot of people kind of giving back to the community from whatever kind of career. Suddenly there were 3-month trials of guitar lessons, or like, come and join this yoga class for free, and all this online. And I thought, well, what's in my tool belt? And mine's kind of a mental tool belt. So I noticed that a lot of people are asking me more about, I'm not normally someone who gets anxious, but I'm kind of feeling a bit negative about things. And that's normal. In this situation, it's so extraordinary. We're surrounded, you could be having something negative to yourself or those around you. You're definitely being surrounded way more than normal by all the negativity on social media about what's going on in the normal media, in the news media as well. So, we're not all impervious to this. So at some point it's probably a bit too much for everybody. So I put a little anxiety relief audio together, and I've just made that available free, and that's still available free. So people can go to my website, matthale.com.au. You can grab that, and there's 2 or 3 others in there. But what that's led into is a lot more work in that field. I've actually ended up putting a whole anxiety course together, a more comprehensive course, because people getting benefit from this nice little 15-minute program I put together, and wanted to kind of delve a bit deeper. But that has just been a big problem, and it's really to do with more the uncertainty of the situation. There's been some fascinating studies on uncertainty that and stress and anxiety levels, because it's almost easier to know the result of something, whether it's good or bad. Even if it's bad, okay, that's what it is. Now I have that as what I need to deal with, and I can work towards that. But the uncertainty, the not knowing, that can cause absolute havoc with what's going on up here. And that's why I think we've seen way more instances of people feeling those kind of negative thoughts. And I say to people, it's normal. It's so normal at this stage, and definitely there are people who would never think in your life, and do check in on everybody. Ask people if they're okay. Not just on the Are You Okay day, but ask them time to time. And sometimes the people you least like think they're not impervious. So yeah,
I know. Well, nurses have been getting called a plethora of different things in recent times, but one of them's obviously been the hero, and it's been spoke about how they're all on the front line. And I know anxiety levels in nurses at the moment are much higher than they probably normally would be, because they're obviously facing the real reality of what COVID-19 has brought to the world. So, yeah, there's probably quite a lot of listeners out there who will really resonate with what you just said.
Yeah.
And I'll put the link to your download in the show notes, if that's okay.
Yeah. And so it's one thing I'll kind of add to that, and I think I may have actually put it in the notes with the audio anyway, but just to put it out here as well, is that remember that you're not born someone who's anxiety prone. You're not again, in itself it's a learned pattern. So at the moment you're probably more susceptible to feeling that. But again, remember, it's not part of you. It's just something you can deal with, and you don't have to be a victim to those thoughts just because you get them. You don't actually have to be a victim. Yes, you can acknowledge them. You can use tips and tricks to kind of deal with them. But you don't have to be like, this is me. It's not. It's just, it's a thing. It's a thing, and we just deal with things.
Yeah, and it's true. The more energy you give them, the more real they would become. So it's about not giving them that energy in the first place. I always talk about going down the rabbit warren. If you don't take that thought down the rabbit warren, it's got much less power than if you end up 5Ks down the road.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'll put that in the show notes. Thank you. It's been really lovely to chat to you. Thank you so much for sharing your tips and expertise with us.
Lovely for me as well.
Yeah, it's been really good. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll see you face to face in some point. So
at some point down the line.
Yeah. And I will say to anyone who's listening here, I will, and especially right at the moment as well, I have more chance to do this than ever before. But if you have any questions that you think I may be able to help with, always feel free to get in touch via social media or my website. I'm very active on social media. Hale is my name on most of those things, but you just type in Matt Hale Hypnotist, you'll find me. But I answer a lot of questions offline, and I'm more than happy to do that and help in any way I can. If there's something you think might be in my mental tool belt, may be of use to you, or may even be of use for you to be able to use in your profession, please feel free to get in touch.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for listening to the Happy Nurse Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's content and would like to join the Happy Nurse community, head over to Facebook and check out the Happy Nurse AU Facebook page and request to join the Happy Nurse community. Also, check out happynurse.com.au for access to free downloads and subscription to my blog. See you soon, and in the meantime, remember to always offer yourself the same compassion that you so freely give to others. I'm excited to share with you all that I've contributed a chapter to the newly published Anxiety Relief Handbook. The handbook provides a unique window into 11 highly effective complementary therapies for you to sample on your quest to ease anxiety. The ebook is available on my website, happynurse.com.au/anxiety relief handbook.